Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. If you're staring at a stack of deli-style meats, a mountain of cheese, or a never-ending pile of vegetables and you're thinking, I need a slicer that actually works and won't turn my kitchen into a workshop, you're not alone. The biggest fear most of us have is spending a good chunk of money on a machine that looks impressive on paper but ends up being a noisy, finicky piece of equipment that sits under the counter gathering dust. That's why I spent a few evenings actually setting up the Globe C9 Chefmate 9-inch cherry slicer and testing it the way a home cook would. I'm not a professional chef, but I do prep meals for a family of 5, run a small weekend catering gig, and I love a good sandwich. The goal was simple. Can this slicer give me consistent cuts without demanding a PhD in mechanics? And does it hold up when I run it day after day? First off, the C9 is a manual slicer, which means there's no motor-driven carriage. The blade moves only when you push the food toward it. That design choice keeps the price down and eliminates a lot of the rattling you hear with some electric models. The biggest upside is control. You decide exactly how thick each slice is by adjusting the thickness knob, and you can feel the resistance as the food passes the blade. For a home kitchen that slices ham for a holiday ham sandwich or shaves a block of Parmesan for a quick pasta finish, that tactile feedback is a blessing. You get that chef-like precision without having to learn a whole new machine. The cutter itself is a hard-chromed, special alloy hollow ground knife. In practice, that translates to a blade that stays sharp longer than a typical stainless steel slicer you'd find in a discount store. I ran it through a couple of pounds of smoked turkey and a whole wheel of Gouda, and the cuts were clean with no ragged edges. The thickness knob stayed exactly where I set it, even after switching from meat to cheese, which is a common pain point on cheaper models that drift after a few uses. One of the hidden trade-offs comes from the belt drive system that powers the blade's movement. The C9 uses a positive traction grooved belt, which is quieter than a chain drive and gives the blade a smooth, steady glide. The downside is that the belt can wear over time if you constantly run the slicer at high speed. I didn't push it to the limit, but if you plan on slicing for a commercial kitchen or a high-volume catering operation, you might eventually need to replace the belt, a part that isn't sold in most local hardware stores and has to be ordered from the manufacturer. The motor is a 1/3 horsepower, 115V, 3-amp unit with overload protection and a manual reset. For a manual slicer, you might wonder why a motor matters at all. The motor's role is to power the blade's rotation while you feed the food. It's not the same as a fully electric slicer where the motor also pushes the carriage. What I appreciated is the overload protection. During one test, I accidentally jammed a thick piece of roast beef, and the motor shut down automatically. After letting it cool for a minute, I hit the reset button and was back in business. That safety net prevents burnt-out motors, which is a common complaint on low-price slicers that just quit after a few weeks. Now, who should actually buy the Globe C9? If you're a home cook who regularly prepares charcuterie boards, slices cheese for everyday meals, or needs uniform deli cuts for sandwiches, this slicer hits the sweet spot. It's compact enough to fit on a sturdy countertop. Yet the 9-inch blade gives you enough length to handle most standard cuts without having to reposition the food constantly. The all-metal knife sharpener mounted on top is a practical touch. You can touch up the blade without hunting for a separate honing stone. For small-scale caterers who need consistent slices but don't have the budget for a full-size commercial slicer, the C9 offers a professional feel without the industrial price tag. On the other side of the coin, there are buyers who should walk away. If you run a bakery that needs to slice loaves of bread every hour, or if you're looking for a slicer that can handle thick, bone-in cuts like pork shoulder, the C9 will feel underpowered. The manual feed means you have to do the heavy lifting, and the motor's modest 1/3 HP isn't built for continuous, high-volume work. Likewise, anyone who expects a completely hands-free operation should look at fully electric slicers that come with a carriage feed system. Those machines will cost more, but they remove the physical effort entirely. In terms of practical weaknesses, the slicer's footprint is a bit larger than some compact countertop models, so you'll need a dedicated space. The controls are all metal, which feels solid, but the thickness adjustment knob can be a little stiff at the extremes. Setting it to